Hey, this is really late, but here I'm actually doing 3 videos today. Starting with Edward II, then Romeo and Juliet, then Midsummer Night's Dream. Let's start with Edward II. So, background: Christopher Marlowe, who wrote the play. He was born in 1864, the same year as Shakespeare. From what we know of Marlowe, he was the son of a shoemaker and a possible government spy. He was an atheist and thought to be a homosexual. However, the most interesting thing about Marlowe is his death at the age of 29. 10 days before his death, he was arrested for his writing, in which he threatened Dutch Protestant refugees living in England by the Privy. And he was commanded to serve lordships until told otherwise, but shortly thereafter was stabbed to death. The reason why is unknown, and there are many theories. One popular one being Marlowe faked his death to get out of the trial. He's in for his blank verse. This kind of discounts the theory that he never really died. He was writing under the name of William Shakespeare, who he greatly influenced. Back on Edward II. It is based on the life of Edward II, King of England. He lived between 1284 till 1327. And as I will describe in this play, there are a lot of interesting things about him. But in the time of the Elizabethan era, histories were very popular. Plays by playwrights. And this play, also called The Troublesome Reign and Lamentable Death of Edward II, King of England, with the tragical fall of Crown Mortimer, is one such example. And I guess writers were dignifying their past rulers. They're proud of their history, of English history. Although this play, there's Richard III by Shakespeare, and then there's this play who make these kings more human. They show some of their corruption and their flaws. So productions of this play is first performed by the Earl of Pembroke's men in 1594. And then there's, in the 1622 edition of the play, it states that it was performed by Queen Anne's men at the Red Bull Theater. Speaking of which, I'd love to have a Red Bull right now. Anyway, and it was actively performed. There was a BBC radio drama that was 26 episodes long. Well, it was called Vivek Rex. It included an abridged version of this play, and that was the first 2 episodes of the play. The Vivek Rex radio drama. is adapted into a film in 1991. The Arc Theatre Company did a production in 2000. Shakespeare Theatre Company did one in 2007. The Rose Theatre in England did one in 2011, and the National Theatre in 2013. And Brecht did an adaptation called The Life of Edward II of England. And anyway, this play was written 1592, I think. And its source is Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles, which was written in 1587. And this play is definitely considered a tragedy in addition to being a history. And alright, let's start talking about this, because this is an interesting play. I like this play. So there's this man named Gaveston, who is the king's, companion. And he returns from exile, and the king gives him titles. Now, there are a bunch of guys who are out to kill Gaveston, because, there are a lot of reasons. The king is neglecting his responsibilities, but also they see him as a threat. He's a controversial figure in the play. And they want to send him, before they want to kill him, they want to send him into exile. Queen Isabella, the lover of Mortimer later in the play, she says that he should be murdered. There's definitely a homosexual suggestion, very heavy, between Gaveston and Edward II. At one point, Mortimer wounds Gaveston, and these nobles have forced Edward to banish him. And in his banishment, Edward is just so depressed. These guys want to execute Gaveston, and Edward wants to see this guy for the last time. And later, he sentences Warwick and Lancaster to death, and he puts Mortimer in the tower. He finds a new guy, Spencer, and he likes him. And he's really alienating Isabella, his wife. And she decides to take Mortimer as her lover, and she goes to France with her son, looking for allies, and France doesn't aid her. And one thing you have to know about Edward, he's not a competent king. He, unlike his father, the English army was really defeated by the French at Bannockburn. And anyway, I just want to mention that from what I read about Edward. So Edward takes refuge in an abbey, but he's betrayed, and Spencer's father executed, and Edward is taken to Kenilworth, and his brother has now renounced his cause and tries to help Edward, but he can't, and Mortimer has him arrested for approaching Edward. He's taken to court, and he's executed. And then the king is imprisoned at Berkeley Castle, where he meets this guy named Lightbourne, and he knows that Lightbourne's going to kill him, but he asks this guy to remain his companion. And Lightbourne knows that he can't deceive the king, so he just kills him. And these two guys witness this. The names are Maltravers and Gurney. And then Gurney kills Lightbourne, and he keeps his silence, but later he flees, and Mortimer sends Maltravers after him, as they fear he's going to betray them. And Edward III, the son of Edward II, has discovered their plot, and Isabella has told this to Mortimer. But before they can do anything, he arrives with attendants and other lords accusing Mortimer of murder, and that he sent Lightbourne to kill Edward. And Mortimer denies this, but he's eventually arrested. He's taken away, and he also is put to death, and Isabella's imprisoned, and Edward III takes the throne. So, characters in this play, Edward II, very interesting character, very, as I said, very incompetent. Definitely found it fascinating with the whole queer theory with him and Gaveston, Spencer. How he can't measure up to be the man his father was. All that's very, very interesting. His relationship towards his wife, all that. Edward III, he's the subject of a Shakespeare play, is young and, much more bold than his father, much closer to his father than his mother, it seems. Isabella's basically a bitch. And, well, I mean, her husband paid absolutely no attention to her. And, I mean, that's not to do with the fact that, well, he's gay, but, she does with Mortimer. She did love Mortimer all along, and she did want to ruin Edward's relationship with Gaveston, and she did want to eventually kill Edward. So the Mortimers, very, very much against Edward. There's an older Mortimer and a younger Mortimer, both plotting against Edward, both. I don't know, they're against Edward. They're not. I mean, they work for him, but they deceive him. Gaveston and Spencer, just the objects of Edward's love. Furthermore, it's confirmed that Edward's definitely gay. the way he takes on Spencer, and how Spencer is described to him, but mostly just in the reactions he has towards, the death of Gaston and his exile and his dependency. So, talking about this, one of the major themes is homosexuality and an unfit king. And you have to look at it from Marlowe's point of view. Marlowe was not like a homophobic playwright. Marlowe himself was thought to be gay. So it wasn't as if he was saying this king was gay, therefore unfit. And I mean, that had nothing to do with it. It's just like, one thing that I did want to mention, there seems to be homophobia in the nobles who suspect that there is something going on between Edward and Gaston, and they're disgusted by it, they're appalled by it, and Isabel's appalled by it, and they're out to ruin this relationship. The unfit king is like, the thing we see is these kings are born to kings, and they're not elected kings, so we have your good kings and we have your bad kings. It depends on the personality. Edward's not good at war. Edward's very emotional, very passionate, very, I don't know, in a way misogynistic, just trying to live his own life, and just not cut out for being a king. So things I liked about this play. Loved the themes, I was definitely hooked on this play, and a really strong ending with Edward III imprisoning his mom and killing Mortimer. So the tragedy was Edward II had his emotions, and he had his poor decision making, which led to his downfall, ultimately his death, and this was avenged by Edward III. So, great tragic structure. I do feel like the first half of the play is just the relationships of Edward and these men. I think it's too much time on them, and then the whole thing shifts with Mortimer and Isabella and this plot against Edward. Just a little problem with structure, in my opinion. But ultimately great play. I definitely recommend it. I prefer it to any Shakespeare play I've written. I love Red. I love Marlowe. Absolutely, totally enjoyed this play. And yeah, alright.